I'm going to talk about the Met collection just to give you some stats to start off with. So we have about 1.5 million objects in the collection that span more than 5,000 years. And objects come from all over the world. 4% of the collection is on view, so think about that the next time you're at the Met. You're only seeing 4% of the collection. We have 17 curatorial departments, and they really function as sort of mini museums, which I'm going to get to later. About 500,000 objects are online. Our largest collection is drawings and prints. They have about 1 million objects. They are still cataloging their collection. About a third of their collection is online. And we have 680,000 images online. Not all of them are public domain. So all of this stuff that I'm going to talk about really happened because of our open access program, which we launched in February 2017. And we did this for many reasons. We wanted to increase access to the collection. We wanted to connect to a broader and diverse audience. We wanted to promote the collection in other projects and resources. We wanted to be a leader in how we shared our collection. And our previous policy was not enforceable. Our previous policy was limited to non-commercial use, and there was just really no way for us to track that. So that was just one of the reasons we launched open access. When we launched, we provided a download button on our object page, so you could download the image directly from our object page. We also made available a CSV of all our data, including works under copyright. That CSV is on GitHub. We update it every Monday. And then in October 2018, we released our public API. And this really opened our collection up to a lot more uses and and newer audiences. So we have endpoints for object data, object IDs. You can do a text search. We provide image URLs. You can search objects by department, and that data is refreshed nightly. And the API is, we're constantly improving it. So actually just yesterday, we added some new fields to the API, which I'm going to talk about. And what is available under our open access program is it's tombstone data, so artists, dates, geography, dimensions, credit line. We also make available certain fields that you can't see online, but we think are useful for anyone researching the collection or anyone who wants to do sort of a deeper dive into things like data visualization. So we include things like the object search dates, which are numerical values for when the object was created, the object name, which is not always displayed online, but we use that for indexing, an artist alpha sort field, so artists can be listed in alphabetical order, artist life dates also in numeric format, separate field for artist nationalities, and a metadata date, which records the date the record was last updated. The API and CSV do not include provenance, references, exhibition history, label text, art periods, movements, and styles. Even though this information is publicly accessible, our in-house counsel did not want to include that under our CCO open data. I hope that will change in the future, but we started off very conservatively with our open access program. And whenever I meet people working with our data, I kind of have to apologize because there are a lot of inconsistencies within our collection. And it can be confusing. It's not always intuitive. And this gets back to our 17 curatorial departments and some themes that came up earlier this morning. I told Katie, we don't have one Carl, we have 100 Carls. So I'm just going to point out a few discrepancies, which is they're probably not clear to anyone using our data. So one thing is how dynasties are recorded. So 2 departments record dynasty, Egyptian and Asian art. The Egyptian department enters dynasty in our dynasty field, whereas the Asian department enters dynasty in the period field, because to them it's a period. Whereas Egyptian, they feel it's a dynasty, so they should enter in the dynasty field. So if you didn't know that, and you were searching all our collection for dynasty, you're only going to find Egyptian objects. The other thing is the period field itself. These are not all our departments use the period field. So we have 5 departments: Ancient Near East, Asian, Egyptian, Greek and Roman, and musical instruments. So for example, we don't record like Renaissance or Rococo and European art. That's just something those departments do not catalog. The other main difference, main area of discrepancy is geography. So a lot of people using our data will want to find things, all our French objects, or all our Chinese objects, and it's actually, depending on the department, entered in 3 different ways. So for our artist-driven departments, those are mostly paintings who have known artists. They record geography in the nationality field, the artist nationality field. They do not record it in our culture field or our dedicated geography field. They rely solely on artist nationality because that's the nature of their field. That's how they study these objects, is by nationality. Whereas a department like Islamic, this is a folio from a Quran, they enter that information in our geography field. Geography includes everything from continent to locus. It could be excavation, find spot. But because Islamic art has very few known artists, they rely on the geography field. And then our European Sculpture and Decorative Arts department, they don't use geography at all. They rely on culture. So this is a tapestry, the Triumph of Fame. All that geographic information is entered in our culture field, Netherlandish, probably Brussels. So you would not know that just looking at our CSV or our API. So these are some idiosyncrasies that I have to explain to partners who do work with us, that you have to sort of look in 3 different places to find geographic information. Over the past 2 years, we've tried to supplement our data to make it more discoverable and useful. And one thing we did over the past 2 years is we added subject tags to the collection. This is data we had never provided, really, for the public. Some departments had it internally for their own use, but we never provided access to the online users. So we wanted to improve search and discovery of the collection. We wanted to increase user engagement. And again, we wanted to make the collection as accessible as possible. And some stats on the tags. We have about 1,100 unique tags. 230,000 objects are tagged. The most popular tag is men, followed by women, portraits and flowers. And then fun facts, we have more female nudes than male nudes, even though men are most depicted in our objects in our collection. And we have 2,800 dogs. We only have 600 cats, if you're wondering. And what we did recently to make these tags, again, more useful and sort of linkable to other data sets, is we linked all our tags to the AAT. So we store the URL to the AAT with our tag. AAT is the Art and Architecture Thesaurus, which is a Getty standardized vocabulary. The other thing we added recently is ULAN IDs for artists. ULAN is the Union List of Artist Name, which is also a Getty standardized vocabulary for artists. And we wanted to do this because the artist names can be spelled in a variety of ways. And I know our version of Rembrandt might not match another museum's version of Rembrandt. And just this example of Angelica Kaufman, there's so many versions of her name, so that's why we imported all the ULAN IDs into our database. The other reason we did it is because the Getty very kindly provided a way to do this through OpenRefine, which is a data management tool. They just did this last year, so I'm very grateful for David for allowing us to do that. So we matched 15,000 artists to ULAN, which is actually less than half of our artists. We have about 48,000 artists, known artists in our collection. But 15,000 is better than nothing, and I also have a list that I'm going to now submit to ULAN for them to add. The other thing we added are Wiki IDs for artists. I'm not going to talk too much about Wiki Data because Andrew's going to talk about that a lot. We've been partnering with Wiki Data a lot over the past year, and he's going to tell you all the benefits of doing that. But we thought, well, if we're doing ULAN IDs, why don't we do Wiki Data IDs? So Andrew sent me a query on how to find all our artists on Wiki Data, and then I imported those IDs, and we store them in our collections management system. And the reason, again, we're doing this to make our data sort of more linkable and relevant to other data sets. And it's a way for us to link to standardize, again, to standardize vocabulary. And the other thing we imported are Wiki IDs for objects. So there are Wiki IDs for names for our artists, and there are Wiki IDs, Wiki data items for our objects. We have been, over the past year, importing most of our objects into Wiki Data. About 15,000 of our objects are on Wiki Data. So now we store those IDs in our collections management system, and they are now added to our API. The other thing we did over the past year is we identified and tagged all our known female artists. This actually came out of a press inquiry. Someone from the press asked us how many female artists we had in the collection, so a call went out to the curatorial departments. I got that list. I then followed up with some other questions. So those are tagged. We have 2,600 female artists in the collection. That is 5% of our known artists who are female. And then in terms of the percentage of collection of objects, that's 8% of our collection of known artists are made by females. But again, we find this, people have asked us, about this. It's becoming more common. So we decided, we need to tag that, we need to store this information in our database and make that accessible. So these fields were added to our API literally 2 days ago. Female artists, the year of acquisition. We didn't think this would be useful, but people working with our data, doing data visualization, they're doing a lot of things like what we were acquiring over time and when. So we thought, we have this in our database, why not include that? So we include our acquisition year. Timeline of Art History, which is an online resource for essays and contextual information about our collection. We included an indicator of whether an object is on the timeline or not. We have about 8,000 objects on the timeline of art history. And as I mentioned, AAT IDs for subject tags, ULAN IDs for artists, about 15,000, Wiki Data IDs for objects, about 14,000, and Wiki Data IDs for artists, 3,000. And possible things we want to add in the future, search dimensions. A lot of people doing data viz with our collection are doing things about size and scale. And because what's available now is just a text field, they have to go through all this work to parse that data into numerical values. We actually store the source dimensions in our collections management system as numbers. So we would like to add that to the API and CSV. Also gallery numbers. It's amazing what people can come up with when they're looking at our data, which we're learning. But people want to build tours. They want to know. They want to build maps. So having the exact gallery number, which we store, would be useful to them. And things like packaged thumbnail images, when they're downloading large portions of our collection, it would be much easier if they could just download a package of our thumbnails. We recently are doing some work with a data scientist, and we actually had to meet him on the street to exchange a hard drive. It was insane. So he could easily get these images. We're looking at things like IIIF, but something like that we would like to add in the future. And here's our JSON. This is our current JSON. Accession year was added. ULAN URL, Wikidata URL, female, gender. All the AAT URLs for our subject tags, and the Wiki Data ID for the object itself. And because we've now made this data accessible through the API and the CSV, a lot of people are finding it and they are using it. So I'm just going to go through a few examples. This is a database called Cleo. It's sort of a portal to Egyptian art collections from 4 different museums: the Met, National Museum of Antiquities, the Walters, and the Brooklyn. And this is all open data, and a researcher just pulled it from our API and puts it into a database called Cleo for Egyptian research. Creative Commons, they imported all our open access images into Creative Commons search. All our images are available, all our open access images are available on Creative Commons. And we're working with school academics. We've worked with Parsons for 2 semesters. They have a data visualization course. And these students come up with really creative things. One student came up with a landscape generator. She used all our landscapes because they're all tagged now. And she created an app to create a new landscape based on images of our own. And this student actually built a filter using all our masks, which was really fun. So it's great working with the students. They're very creative, and they're allowing us to see our collection in a way we don't even see ourselves. So that's why it's exciting to work with them. And the other big community we've been engaging with over the past 2 years is the data science community, especially around AI and machine learning. So Kaggle is a platform for data science competitions. A lot of the competitions are sponsored by companies like Google, Microsoft, Instagram, and many of them have cash prizes. There's one contest right now, it's $1 million cash prize. And these are things like sentiment analysis in internet comments, predicting real estate prices, predicting the stock market. But they also have other competitions that are purely for research that don't offer cash prizes. So last year, we contacted them. They were very intrigued with our data set. So they said, let's do an art computer vision competition using our open access data. And we were hoping for maybe 20 teams, because it's art. It's so different from the rest of the competition. So okay, let's do 20 will mean it's successful. We got 521 teams over 3 months. So we were more than pleased. Some of the comments, one person said, this data set inspired me to go to the museum. One comment said, thank you for this data set. It's much more interesting than, earthquake seismic graphs. So we love working with them. We also have our own interest in AI and computer vision, because we have all these tags, which we used a vendor to do. We no longer have money to continue to pay a vendor to tag our works, and we have about 70,000 objects that still need to be tagged. We can't do that manually ourselves, so we're looking at AI models. It's not at the level we need, but working with this community is interesting and potentially useful for us in the future. And I'm going to end here. We have many other partners we've been working with: Microsoft, Pinterest, MIT, the UVA School of Data Science, Google Arts and Culture, ArtStore, Visipedia, which is an academic consortium of data scientists. Andrew's going to talk about Wiki Data and Wikimedia Commons. Having an open access policy and having a public API really opens our collection up into new ways and to new audiences. We're so glad we did it. We know it's not perfect. I tell everyone who's working with our data that it's not perfect. It also changes all the time. We update our data literally every day. And it's idiosyncratic. It's like we have that geography challenge. But we are trying to find new ways to sort of offset those inconsistencies, like mapping to ULAN, mapping to the AAT, and we're very hopeful about mapping to Wikidata. And we want to put our data where people go. We don't expect everyone to come to our website. We cannot compete with the 1 billion visitors who visit Wikipedia every month. So we want to put our data onto Wikipedia. And even the images that have been used on there have been really interesting, because they're not always related to art. So if you go to the pineapple page, there's a work in our collection on the pineapple page because it was made out of pineapple fibers. It's actually a handkerchief. If you go to the Down syndrome page, there's actually a work in our collection on that page because researchers believe figures in that painting have Down syndrome, so it's on the Down syndrome page. So things like that, things we would never expect an art collection to be relevant to, that's what open access has done for our collection. Thank you.